So now we're going to cross the bridge. So remember that diagram. I'll bring it up again. Okay, we've done the you-know-how. I've connected. I have sensed some level of interest with this person. You know how, whatever, okay? They're interested. I gave them a couple of, things that are happening out there that are alarming or, capture their attention, and they want to know more about what I do. Now, that could lead a couple of different places. One place it may lead to is, have you ever thought about how security works? So I'm at a trade show. I'm talking to someone who is somewhat technical or at least understands all this stuff. You know how all these companies keep getting hit with ransomware? Have you ever wondered why that is? Let me show you how security works. House cloud coverage model. But I might be in a meeting where we're talking about what it is that we do in more detail. So in a meeting, sales meeting, I would not go into the house of the cloud, the coverage model at this point because we're just introducing. Okay, so if there were a platform for me to give a 60-second, and we're actually going to write out ours, I would bridge over to an explanation of what my company does. All right, so again, looking at this picture, we're building on the 4 things that buyers buy minus return on investment, leaving us with customer experience, operational efficiency, risk mitigation, and we're choosing risk mitigation because it's the most compelling, fastest moving value proposition there is, and it's the easiest one for anybody in the infrastructure business, meaning data center, collapsed infrastructure, MSP, and any other kind of, hardware network type technology background to move into. The alternative is software, robotics, deep machine learning, sign up with IBM and sell Watson, that kind of stuff. And by the way, very profitable. I'm not putting any of that down, but it's a huge leap. So we're heading down this risk road, and so now I want to tell you exactly what I do. So I'm going to take you through how to build your value proposition using these blocks right here. And so I want to break down each one, and I want to explain what each one goes through. And then we'll actually going to take some time, and we're going to build it right here. Okay? All right, so take some notes as you go along so that when we go back and we actually formulate these, that you have one. Okay? So let's move to the first one. So again, we're just going down this stack on the right-hand side, trends, what I see. Okay? So number 1, trend. So I've done my you-know-how. I'm bridging over, and I'm going to give them a few sound bites. Now, I only need 1 or 2 sound bites here. And remember, a sound bite, you can get more detail if you own the book, The House in the Cloud, page 69, sound bites. So I want to give you a word on sound bites here. Actually, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, so I'll get there. But I just want to give you some examples here of sound bites, okay? Sound bites come in the Edge newsletter. People keep asking me, where do I find sound bites? If you have insider access or peak performer access, which everyone here today does have, you can go to the newsletter archive. I think there's like a year or 2 worth of archived stuff, and they're by date. And I put the reference in there. So I don't have the date in the issue, unfortunately, but there's just not enough room to publish all that stuff. So, when I say it's Wall Street Journal and it's the May edition, it's the month before. So, because I write it, I write April's letter gets published in May. I write it in April, I send it out in May because it has to get printed. So in April, I come across a soundbite from the Wall Street Journal. I put it in there and I say from the Wall Street Journal, and it comes out in the May newsletter. So if you look in the archives, you're going to see, any newsletter that's in the past 6 months or so is going to be relevant. And you're looking for sound bites that are relevant to your market. Some are enterprise level, some are SMB. So when you see one that says 2/3 of cyber attacks are now directed at small businesses and 60% of those go out of business, I'm talking to the small business market. When you see a sound bite like 250,000 workstations get compromised by malware every single day, okay, that quote comes from SC magazine. That's an enterprise quote. It's really anybody, but it certainly plays well in the enterprise. Okay, the quotes I have here actually come from the March newsletter for this year for SVLC. Okay, 60% go out of business. Those that stay in business, it's costing them between $84,000 and $148,000. Now, I'm not going to use all that here, but that's what trends are. They're sound bites. Now, the reason I point you to page 69 in the House in the Cloud, there's about 10 pages there on what makes a good soundbite and what makes a bad soundbite. So I'm going to give you a few things on that here. So first of all, sound bites need to be short and to the point. You need to have them memorized. They need to roll off your tongue. 2/3 of small businesses are the main target, or 2/3 of attacks are targeting small business. So if you're in small business and you're used to hearing people say, well, we're a small company, nobody cares about that. No, 2/3 of cyber attacks, according to the Wall Street Journal, or this actually was US Capital, are targeting small business. Whoa, okay. And if I've got it from a credible source, which should be on this slide, credible source, meaning one that my listener would recognize or at least sounds recognizable, Money Magazine, CNN Money would be okay, CNN would be okay, Wall Street Journal would be okay. Any of those, Forbes would be good. Any of those types of magazines, Harvard Business Review would be good. Anything like that is going to play well. If it came from like Cosmopolitan magazine or something like that, or the National Enquirer, I wouldn't use it. And if it came from something that's credible to you, but they don't recognize it, like, dark reading, that's credible, but it's not going to play that well with the CIO necessarily, and certainly not with a small business owner. With a security guy, he's going to be good with that. Krebs on security, he's probably going to be good with that. Okay, if Bruce Schneier said it, he's going to know who that is. He's going to be good with that. If Kevin Mitnick said it, he's going to be good with it. He's going to go with it. But the small business owner is going to go, who's that? Okay? So it doesn't matter if anybody read the Wall Street Journal. It matters that just about every business owner gets the Wall Street Journal. And, a lot of them don't read it, but they get it anyway. So if they get it, or they know it, or they like it, and most of these guys do, it's truth. Okay? And you don't need to validate it. You just need to have a source for it, and it needs to sound somewhat credible. Okay? That's what you need. It's a high impact statement you like. It comes from a credible source that they're going to recognize, that is relevant to them. Okay? Specific to their market. So, small business oriented, like I just gave you, for a small business person. And if you can get something specific to healthcare for healthcare, that's good. You want to play to the market they're in, and you also want to be thinking about specific impact. Okay? So sound bites become more credible when they're specific. I like numbers in my statistics. I like 3 out of 4 or something like that. Okay? So think about that in sound bites. Don't belabor this. So we just want 1 or 2 sound bites that you really like, and they would have to tie together. For instance, tied together. 2/3 of small businesses or all cyber attacks, 2/3 of all cyber attacks are focused on small business. 60% are estimated 60% will go out of business within 6 months. Okay? 2 sound bites that relate to each other brought together to create one trend. Okay? And it's a Wall Street Journal level trend. It's small business, where the cyber attacks are focused, who's going out of business. There's a financial relationship there. Okay? And hopefully it's a wake-up call. Okay? It's a soundbite. So that's what we're using. Now, the other thing that I want to mention here about sound bites, which is super important, is a lot of people use too many sound bites. They have slides with 15 statistics on it. Okay, you don't want that. And here's why. And I've explained this in some of my articles, but it's kind of weird stuff here when you get into the whole brain thing. But there's right and left brain thinking, and we all know that, your right brain is emotional, and that person's a left brain thinker because they're analytical. And the truth is that we all are thinking with both sides of our brains, and some have a better connection between the two sides of the brains than other people do. That is a fact. Some people have less pathways that cross the brain barrier, if you will. But the right brain always is telling the left brain what to do. It doesn't matter if you're right brain or left brain. This is a fact. There are 4 levels of processing that take place on the right brain, and they're very fast, up to 250 times faster than the left brain. The left brain, think of it more like a library of things that have happened that are stored in it that you can recall. Okay, so for instance, there are no words on your right side. Your right brain does not think about words. It doesn't understand words. Your left brain does think in words, and it understands words, and that's where stuff gets cataloged in words. In fact, I was listening to an FBI guy talking recently, and he was saying that when somebody looks angry, this is not about sound bites, but it's just an interesting fact to get you thinking about how your brain works. When somebody is angry, it's an emotion. and it's happening on the right side of their brain, and there are different levels of processing of where that anger is taking place and why that person's angry. But if you say to that person, you seem angry, that person is now forced to go over to the left side of their brain, to the logical side, to name it angry. Whereas before, it was just an emotion. Now it's moved over to the left side where we can deal with it logically. Kind of an interesting little tidbit. There's a lot of application here that ties into sales now suddenly, because it's also true that you cannot convince somebody to change an opinion or a belief system that they really hold true through a left brain side, because the right brain controls what the left brain thinks. Okay? So what that means is, if you really believe that the earth is flat, and I come along and I start giving you all the logical reasons why that can't be true, if I do it with statistics and that sort of thing, and I'm speaking to your left brain, I will never convince you, which explains why when you're trying to argue with a spouse or a significant other or one of your kids, one of your teenage, brilliant sophomore children, I don't mean yours, but I just mean kids in general, right, who just know everything, and you're trying to logically explain why, it's not a good idea to, whatever it is they're getting ready to do that they've justified in their mind. If it's all left brain stuff, you will never convince them. You might force them, you might manipulate them, but you're not going to convince them. The convincing happens on the right side of the brain. The left side processes facts and figures. Okay? Now, what that means is, I'm using these trends, and these trends are clearly left brain ideas. Okay? They're left brain ideas. They're not going to convince anybody of anything, but what they do is establish some credibility, which causes the right brain to wonder about them. That's all. Okay? But we're creating some credibility, and we're going to come back to that later on. I just want one or two credibility things, okay, that kind of just state my credentials, okay? I understand what the trends are out there. That's what I'm doing. The right brain deals in stories, sounds, pictures, even poetry. Even though words aren't processed on the right-hand side, poetry is for some reason, kind of weird. And if I can interrupt the right-hand side, if I can disrupt it, if I can get it upset, I can now create a change on the left-hand side. And that's what I'm doing with security, okay? I'm raising pain as a possible issue. So remember my marketing triangle? I've got my people group. I've got my message. My message is about fear. And fear gets processed first on the right-hand side of the brain. And it gets processed at a low level, second level of your brain. Amygdala is what processes fear. And when that fear needs to be handled, that's where that fight kind of thing, but it's actually freeze, flight, or fight, okay? Freeze. And the freeze moment is where the brain tries to figure out in the third and fourth level what to do about it. Now, I bring up all that because as we go through the value proposition, the structure of this is designed to take the person from some facts into something much more emotional that upsets them. I don't mean makes them cry or anything, but gets them thinking more emotionally about what it is that they need so that I can get to the root issues and I can help them. Okay? You know how, boom, boom, boom. You know how all these companies keep getting hit with ransomware even though all these technology companies claim to be able to stop it? Yeah. Let me show you how this works, okay? Here's what we do. A few figures. First of all, 2/3 of attacks are focused on small business. 60% of them are going to go out of business. Fact. All right? Now, number two, second thing I'm going to go into, and all this happens in about 60 seconds, okay? It's quick. You got to have it memorized. It's got to be short. You're going to write yours, so take some notes along the way because I'm going to ask you to pull yours together so that you have it, okay? And I'm really going to encourage you to send me a recording of it, okay? So to say it and send it to me. I'm not going to share it with anybody else. If you want to post it on the Facebook group, I'd love that, but you don't have to. But if you send it to me, I'll give you private critique, or you can call me up and just share it on the phone if you want to. But if I can listen to it on recording, I can really listen a few times and really hear it, and I can provide some stuff back to you that's going to help you really make it great. And I hope you'll do that. Definitely take me up on that, okay? All right. So second is what I see. So small businesses or big businesses, doesn't matter what they are, things that I'm looking for, what I see. I'm looking for impact here. All right, so I'm thinking about what I see. Now, what this means is I'm looking for something to communicate to them that I'm observing out there. So here's some things that I'm observing. Small businesses are doing whatever they're doing, and they have no idea what the real danger is. I mean, they're looking around and they think everything's fine, but they have no idea. Their untrained end users are handling extremely sensitive information. You know, one of the analogies that I use here frequently is, if I want to fly an airplane, I've got to have hundreds of hours of flight experience, instruction, certifications, go through these tests. You know, I got to have a whole bunch of stuff before I can just jump in a plane and go. But you sit down and somebody in front of a computer system that has your most private, most personal, most expensive, or whatever that company has, assets, with no training at all really on security. You give them full access and you say, go to it. So they're sitting here in front of this computer and they are in the lifeblood of the company, untrained, and who knows what is leaking out. Okay, so we know that. We know that the data value, that data has become a currency, that it has become the most valuable asset within a company. If you lose your data, your business is gone. I mean, look at your own business. If you lost your data, your client data, your trouble tickets, and all that stuff, the financial information, if you lost that, you know, how would you recover? It is a critical asset today. And if your email goes down, can you still work? You know, it's hard for me to do anything. Or if I can't get to my CRM system, you know, one of the things I hate about the cloud is when they screw something up in the CRM application, you know, I'm stuck with that screw up until they fix it. I can't like roll back to the old version or whatever. You know, they might roll back to the old version, but I don't know if they will or not. And I've had issues where, you know, I can't print labels and I got to get my mailers out. And the guy's saying, well, we got a problem with that. We're working on it. We will fix it at some point. There's a workaround that takes like 5 hours, but you can do that in the meantime. Wow, you know, digital asset value. And then we have this bullet 4, 90% of companies are making a major mistake. And it's going to cost them, and it could cost them their whole business. And I hope you know what that mistake is, because it's right here in the House in the Cloud, chapter 13, okay, the one big mistake. So what I see, right, I'm giving you observations of things that I see that are going out there. Small businesses are just carrying on their work, dealing with very sensitive data with no real clue as to what's going on out there, and their end users are not well trained, don't understand what security issues are. And did you know this? 90%, and I don't have this on here, but here's an interesting little soundbite that I sometimes throw in there. 90% of cybercrime attacks involve an insider. Did you know that? Most of it's operational error, but it involves them because they're not trained. Okay. Now, what am I giving them? What I see. I'm still on the what I see. I'm making an observation. Okay. I'm the portal. I'm the salesperson who's been in all these different companies around the community, around the city, or wherever you work, or these big companies. You know, I've been in, you know, these large company IT organizations, and I've been working with them for years. And, you know, so it doesn't matter what market you're in, but the fact is that you're in all these different companies and you're seeing what all these different companies are doing. You're seeing smart things. You're seeing stupid things. You're seeing companies being compromised. You're seeing lawsuits. You're seeing all kinds of stuff. Wise investments, bad investments, good employees, bad employees. And you are a portal of information. And so you should see yourself as that. Okay. So some sound bites, you know, 2/3 of all cybercrime attacks are attacking small businesses. What I see all these small companies that just have no clue what's going on, and their end users don't know what's going on. And 90% of attacks right now involve insiders because they are just so clueless as to what security is all about. Okay, I'm moving into an emotional storyline here, and I hope you see that, because now I'm starting to talk about what I'm seeing and experiencing, and there's an emotional aspect to it. Okay. It's the feeling that I get in there that I'm trying to give you, the worrisomeness. Okay? Here's the ransomware attack, okay? Time is running out. Hackers are threatening to wipe their data if not paid. Okay? This is the kind of stuff that I'm seeing. So this is good storyline and stuff. Like, are you seeing what's happening in Atlanta? Okay, you know, that it's happening with a lot of companies. It just happens to be that this company is big, and so they're in the news. All right. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that emotional. Now, we're going to make a transition here because I need to move into applying this to them, and I need to move into communicating value for me. I haven't really done that so far. I've captured your attention. You know how. Okay, so I've got your attention, and it looks like you're interested. So I throw a few sound bites out, 60% of this or 2/3 of that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is what's happening out there. And I'm seeing, holy cow, am I seeing, right? I'm seeing all these companies making all these mistakes. And here's my concern. Now, here's where the emotion comes in. Remember, right brain to right brain communication is an emotional connection. Okay? And I'm concerned here, and this is where you might want to shed a tear, okay? So you know, it needs to be concerning, right? If you're going to be in the medical industry and you're going to be dealing with people coming in with cancer or heart problems or something like that, and you diagnose some sort of cancer issue, you should look like you're worried about it, right? You should have some empathy response to it and be like, oh, you know, I am sorry to see you have to go through this. You know, this is horrible. And the doctor who doesn't look that way, the doctor who's like, you know, if you've seen the Good Doctor show, the guy who has who's autistic, right, on television, you know, a lot of times he just says stuff bluntly like, you're going to die, you know, and, you know, there's no empathy there. And that doesn't work here. So here we have a concern, and we're expressing that concern in a sense of humanity that, you know, the companies in our community are dying, you know. It is the backbone of the American economy. And if you're in another country, it may be similar for you. But small business is important, and big manufacturing is important to whatever country you're in. And the healthcare field is important to the, you know, the lifeblood of your people. So when this stuff gets hit and they lose everything as a provider of remediation and protection services, I ought to care. And so at this point, I need to express that to the person. I am concerned that if small businesses don't take some action, that they're going to fail. Like, you guys are going to be out of business. And that concerns me. And if they really understand that you are concerned about it, you're not just trying to make money out of it. The other thing I'm concerned about are compliance costs. You run a small business probably, and I run a small business, and some of you work for a small business or work for a larger business. But we're all struggling with this issue of compliance costs. It's expensive. And what is compliance? Compliance is the government's response to cybercrime. And when you think about it, the government can't really respond to cybercrime. They can't stop North Korea from hacking into Sony. I mean, I guess they could clamp down our internet somehow, but we don't want that. We don't want Big Brother spying on everything we're doing and cutting off our content like the people in China do. And of course, they're finding ways around it anyway. We don't want that. So we should be concerned, but the government can't really do anything about this. It is important for each business to care, and it's important for each provider, like you all, to get in there with solutions and help these people stop the problem, because whenever it keeps going, the government keeps pouring on more compliance stuff, which is not solving the problem. And you and I know it's not. You know, HIPAA is not making healthcare information more secure. It's putting some policy in place that keeps them from sharing stuff. That's good, but it's not keeping the hackers out. Okay, so my concern, I see these companies making these mistakes. I see them failing. You know, somebody's got to do something about this. It's short. Again, all this stuff is short. Just thinking, you know, I need to knock this all 5 points in like 60 seconds. I need to knock them down. I need to have genuine concern. I need to realize that this kind of stuff is destroying the infrastructure around me, and it's going to make life hard for everybody, and it's going to put some people out on the street, and especially those guys that are in their 50s that are wanting to retire. Their company's gone now. Now what do? It's a big issue. Okay? It's an emotional issue. Now, my concern is a little bit longer here. Okay? My concern. Now, I'm sorry, I'm my third thing, right? So I'm sorry, it's not longer, but I've got some things in here. Okay, this is like a little storyline. They're little examples. Okay, so imagine getting unknown phone calls every hour. So where does this come from? I forgot to put the title on here. This comes from an article of stuff that's happening out there. These are examples of concern. So look at some of these things. Imagine getting unknown phone calls every hour, blocking your flow of work or a peaceful night of sleep. Imagine strangers calling you from around the country and knocking on your door after they heard that you were giving away your old Lamborghini. Of course, none of this is happening. Somebody posted some stuff online that led somebody to, this is a real guy writing about this. Imagine getting endless deliveries that you didn't order. Imagine a police car pulling into your driveway in the middle of the night because someone from your mobile number texted and reported a murder. Imagine losing your job because someone sent a hateful, abusive, and borderline racist email to your boss and colleagues. Imagine the look of shock on your parents' faces because they received an email from your email ID confessing, something terrible like incest or child abuse or, whatever. These aren't just some possibilities. These are actual nightmares that I lived, not me, but the writer of this, through after my data was compromised by online hackers. All right. So this is concern right here. And by the way, this is a great little article. I don't know if I were you, I'd take a screenshot of that because that kind of stuff is emotional appeal. And I want my client to hear this. I want them to think about this. This is what makes security come alive. I've heard stories, and they're real stories in the news of the FBI. Whenever the FBI comes into somebody's home to arrest them for something really bad, like child pornography or something like that, like the distribution of child pornography, they show up at 5 in the morning when everybody's home. So there are absolute accounts out there, real accounts of the FBI showing up at some guy's door, barging in at 5 in the morning, confiscating everything. And if you could just imagine being the husband and father in that home, being arrested for the distribution of child pornography, all the computers confiscated to be looked at, and your wife and your kids are there, and you're like, what? I have no knowledge of this. And you're sincere, but they don't care because anybody would say that. And they haul you off, and your employer finds out about it, and your neighbors find out about it, and a year later or 6 months later, you're cleared. But you know what? Too late, right? So this is impact. This is what I love about security. Not that it happens to people, but that this issue is huge. I mean, it is so much more important than somebody's IP telephony system. You know what I mean? So if you're doing all that other stuff, that's great. But this is the stuff to lead with. I mean, this is what kills people. This is what destroys families. And if you're in there being the trusted advisor and you know how to fix this stuff, you know how to stop this stuff, I mean, how much are you worth? We're going to talk about value pricing tomorrow. You want to talk about value. This is value, okay? So you want to move from vendor to advisor. This is where the person needs advice. If they believe that this really could happen, and it really can, because it is happening, it's the place to enter, okay? So we've gone through the trends. We've seen what I've seen, and now I'm saying, hey, I'm concerned. Like, this stuff's happening, okay? This is happening. Now, what am I doing about it, okay? What have you done about it? Well, I've spent the last 12 months studying these trends, okay? Here's my value prop, okay? I saw the trends out there. Here's what I see. Here's what I'm experiencing and observing out there. I'm concerned about this stuff. A tear is shed because it's serious. Here's what we're doing. My company used to be an MSP provider, or we used to be a data center company. But I've spent the last 12 months or the last 2 years, or in my case, since 1995, focused on the security market, studying these trends, finding answers. Okay? We've developed ways to assess, to find and ferret out the symptoms of compromise, to show if something's actually going on. We've partnered with, the best technology companies out there that build this stuff, so we can go in, we can analyze it, we can find it, and we can stop it, and we can maintain it. Okay? This is a statement of determination, like we are in this game. We've made the investments. I mean, you're here today because you're in this business, or you want to be in this business. And what I'm saying to you is there is no better business to be in if you understand technology than helping the guy who's getting his door beat down in the middle of the night because he's being accused of something he didn't do because somebody stole his ID, or somebody's taking out loans and running him into debt that he'll never recover from, and his whole name will be destroyed because they've spent all his money on him and he can't prove that he's innocent. this is a great place to be. And this is what you're doing. And I hope you're doing it. I hope you're building this stuff and you're partnering with these companies that are going to help you build the back end, the complex piece of it, so your guys can go in, assess, remediate, deploy into security intelligence technology, and manage it and keep them there. Okay, that's what we're doing. So these are some things that I want you to just kind of keep in mind. You are the expert. This is your value. So as you're communicating your value proposition and you're telling them what you're doing, be thinking, we're the experts, okay? And if you're not the expert, you need to be reading, okay? You don't need to go back to college for this. I mean, you could go through 4 years of master's school for security, and you'd spend 75% of that time doing history classes and electives and, you know, higher ed math classes and whatever else they ask you to do in college. It would be a total waste of time. Or you could get a hold of some of the books and online programs and things like that that get into this stuff. And if you really want to get into the technology like your CISSP, then go to CISSP boot camp for a week and just get you know, just filled with CISSP stuff. I didn't go to the boot camp because they didn't have such a thing when I got my certification, but I've had clients go to it and pass the test. You got to have, you know, 5 years of real experience, but a certification like that is worth getting. GX certification. I used to send my guys to SANS.org programs, and I went to them too every year when I was in the, you know, technology delivery business. So SANS.org, SANS, hope you've heard of that. Awesome programs. And you know, you sign up for different, it's like going to college for one topic for a week all day long. It's like cramming a whole semester into a week. And you can go to ones on policy development, on threat detection, on ethical hacking. You know, I mean, talk about being an expert. Now, I wouldn't do that if you're the salesperson, but I would encourage you to send some of your technical guys, if they're keepers, if they're people that you're going to keep long term and are loyal to your company. I would send them. It's expensive. It's, you know, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s to send them to one of these programs. But I did that, and it paid off, especially as you move up market and you get into higher end security opportunities. You need that kind of background. But as the seller, as the marketer, as the person who owns the company, if you're in one of those roles, which most of you are, then you're the person speaking about that stuff, and you need to be reading the books that are about that stuff, but not the details. You don't need to know how to configure a firewall. You don't need to know all the specs for a firewall from Check Point. Your guys do, not you. You need to be reading the books that are about security, not the details of how to configure stuff, okay? You're the person who has made investments of time and money in becoming an expert. You're the portal of information. You're that person who's observing all this stuff that's going on, because this company over here only sees what's in their company. And you've been in all of these companies, you've seen all the mistakes, and you're compiling all the information. This is good, this is not good, and you're aggregating that information so that you can bring good advice to all the people that you work with. But that takes time, and it takes talking with people. You know, spend time with the people who are doing stuff and find out what they did right, what they did wrong, what mistakes they see, what trends they see. And as you do that, you build a wealth of information out there that is going to help you propel your career and be the expert. Here's what we're doing, okay? So this is how you set yourself apart. When we see MSP organizations out there, don't need to name any of those, but you know what I'm talking about, people who do coaching with MSPs and have groups of MSPs doing stuff, and they keep saying you need something of value. This is it, okay? If you do this, you are setting yourself apart, and you are becoming a niche expert. And I'm telling you, when I get in front of a group of resellers, of MSP providers, of technology providers, whatever, at a distributor organization like a Tech Data, Tech Select event, or an Ingram Micro event, and I ask for the raise of hands, how many of you have security on your website as an offering? Everybody does. Everybody does. But then when I ask, keep your hand up if you really understand security, or your company really is in the security business, like you really do in-depth security analysis and threat detection and stuff like that. All the hands go down. I mean, like maybe 10%. Just, you know, just a handful out of the audience are left. So my point is, this is absolutely necessary. It's needed. If you're doing this, your competitors are not. And if they say they are, they're probably not really doing it. And it's pretty easy to show a prospect the difference. I would just carry around my security assessment. You know, if you don't have one, make one. and make it good. Just build it out. Just make it look beautiful. It's a showpiece. It's a document. It's got the graphs. It's got the charts. It's got the recommendations in it, and it's colorful. And you get somebody who does some copywriting editing to it and make it look beautiful. And so all the headings and stuff really read well and compel people. And you don't leave it with them. You just show it to them. Like this is security. Do your current providers do this? Do they measure impact likelihood? Can they tell you what your likelihood is of having a disaster over the next 12 months? Have they actually quantitatively measured your risk? Okay, those are the kind of things that I'm showing you how to do in my execution plans and in my security sales mastery training program. Because when we do these things, they set us apart from all those other people. Okay? So be that person when you get to number 4. You've gone through the trends, what you see, you're concerned, you're doing something about it, and you are the expert. Okay? So right now, I'd just like you to take a moment, just 2 or 3 minutes, and I'd like you to chat in the box, if you would, and at least write down on your notebook paper some things that you are doing right now that you think are somewhat unique. And then I'm going to give you some that you should be doing, either that some of you are already doing or ones that should be on that list. So go ahead, just take 2 or 3 minutes, and it should be fast. Just type them in there, and maybe add a couple to your notebook or whatever. What are you doing? Okay, we got a bunch in there, and I hope everybody's doing stuff. So just a couple that stand out here that I jotted down as they were coming through. Getting people security certified, certainly a good thing. I would certainly recommend looking at some of the industry certifications, although they're more expensive, so you want to have people who are really loyal to your company to do that. Getting this training, appreciate that, and having you as my mentor, so I appreciate those comments. Lots of reading, understand that. It takes a lot of reading, a lot of listening. Audiobooks are good. Subscribing to some of the blogs out there. Krebs on Security is a good one. I also use an app I've mentioned to a number of people called Flipboard on my phone, and that's a really good app. Flipboard allows you to subscribe to keywords like cybercrime, security, stuff like that. And so, you can subscribe to anything like fishing and hunting if you wanted to, but if you want to know what's going on in the security space and you subscribe to a keyword like security, Flipboard is going out and it's looking at all kinds of popular magazines, newspapers, that kind of thing. So you're going to get stuff from Wall Street Journal. You're going to get stuff from Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, Wired, and there's a bunch of other ones. And you can even target certain magazines to include those specifically, okay? So yeah, a couple people chimed in, you're using that, okay? But that is really good. Like when I get up to speak, before I get to speak, I always pull open Flipboard and I just flip through, as many as I can just to see if there's anything interesting. And, sometimes the articles are stupid because they're in a business magazine written by a business person, but they have a great title. So it still gives me something really good to talk about. Like recently, there was an article that had 10 symptoms that you've been compromised on your mobile devices. That's compelling. In fact, it was rated highly and it kept coming up because when you have a lot of readership, it pops up more than once in Flipboard based on its popularity. Now, when I read the article, I thought, there's nothing really that interesting in this article, but the title is really good. So it gives me something to talk about, and I can gather my own and do that. People adding SOC services and SIM services, data intelligence to their thing. That's a really good one. Adding other new product offerings that are security specific, getting trained on new security products. Okay, so learn the talk, the reading, the trends, getting the detection response element in there. That's really key, and a lot of people have that in here. So those are things that you really do want to be doing, because if you're going to talk about detection response, you've got to have it. Okay, so all really, really good things to do. Lost my slide deck here. Here it is. Okay. All right, now, the last section. So again, I've bridged over, right? You know how I've bridged over trends. Here's what I see. I'm concerned. Here's what we're doing about it. And finally, specific to you, okay? So we're going to customize this portion, and we're going to use some very specific words that are on the next slide, okay? But we're customizing this piece. So the whole thing that we just went through, we want to be fairly generic, specific to our target market. So think of your target market as a target, okay, bullseye, and your value proposition is built for your bullseye, okay, just like mine is. So, my bullseye really is the technology provider who is getting into security, trying to build security. I work with a lot of MSP providers, but I also work with a lot of companies that are larger, big box, data center, everything's a commodity. We need to get into something cooler, so we get into security. But I do end up doing a lot of work and even training work with direct sales reps of manufacturers. They see my stuff and they go, hey, we want our guys to, do you work with manufacturers? Sure, but my marketing, if you read my marketing, some people will call me up and say, I see a lot of MSP stuff on your site. Do you work with larger integrators? Oh yeah, I've worked with all the major integrators that you could probably name in the US anyway, and some of them are even global at some point or another. But I write a lot about MSPs because they're hurting more than anybody else right now, and there's thousands of them, whereas there's not thousands of global technology integrators. So I'm honing in on a particular market that's of particular interest right now, and that could change next year, but my overall process won't change, right? I'm in security, a security value proposition, detection response, all that stuff stays the same. It just gets massaged a little bit, and this is where it happens right here. I'm customizing it at the end, and I'm going to use some very specific language. So here it is. I've been through all the things to the point of here's what we're doing. We've invested in all this stuff. Now specific to you. As I see your company, okay? So Jim, as I see your company in the what? Okay, here's the customization. In the financial business, in the healthcare business, being a small business or a micro business or a global business or a company dealing a lot with internationals like China, nation states, whatever you're doing. I believe you're a target, because everyone is a target, but we're going to sort of shrink this down and make it specific to you. So as I see your company in whatever sector it is, the financial markets here, I believe you're a target. The question here is, would you be able to detect and respond to a problem in time before something bad happens? All right, now you can guess where I'm going after this, because we've just now finished the value proposition. I don't mean in our training, but I mean in my conversation. I'm going to the house in the cloud. Have you ever thought about how security really works and why it's so broken out there? Why these guys are winning? Let me show you something. House cloud coverage model assessment. Okay, so we're just creating this flow. Remember the conversion blueprint: education, moving into assessment. So my value proposition, I'm up in the message box. I've connected with somebody. I'm meeting with somebody. Here's who I am. Here's my value proposition. Now, what I want you to do, I'm gonna actually come to a conclusion right here, okay? And I'm gonna ask you to write out your 5 steps, okay? You got 5 extra minutes, and then we have a 15-minute break. So just spend 5 minutes and do this before you break. Just while you're there, while it's fresh. It doesn't need to be long. You want it to be something you could say in 60 seconds. Okay, it's pretty short stuff, but I want you to give me all the pieces here: trends, what I see, my concern, what we're doing, and so forth. And then we'll come back at 3:15. Let's see, it's 3 o'clock. Well, it's almost 3, so 3 is our break. So at 3:15, we'll be back here, and at that point, we'll be moving into our last segment, which will be hopefully 90 minutes long. Okay, so we'll get you out a little bit early here on that. Okay, so take that time, go through the 5 sections. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes, and then you get 15 minutes to go get your coffee and a donut or whatever it is, and come back, and we'll re-engage here for the last today's last portion. Okay, it is 3:15 East Coast time, and I hope everybody had a good break. I showed up with my big giant mug of bold espresso, so that'll kind of keep me awake the rest of the afternoon, and maybe all night. I don't know. So anyway, hope you have something there to keep you going. I know it's a long day, but I believe that these things are going to help you, and so forth. So hopefully you've written out your thing. So we're not going to have time for you to say them here, obviously, because we're not going to bring everybody on and do that. In a live class, we would, but I do want to encourage you to record it and send it to me. Okay, just create a little audio file on your phone and send it. Okay, so somebody did send me there, so that's okay. Let me just read through it quickly. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so the person who just, Frank just posted his in there. The one word I don't like is listen. So like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way down your column where you say, listen, we developed this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm going to go through mine, and then if you'll record yours and send it to me, I'll actually make very specific critiques, and I will send back my comments to you on what it is. But yes, so far, yes, we're on the right track. The person who put that in there, or Frank did. Okay, someone else asked a question. Will the slides be in the training section on the portal? Yes, I will. I will have a PDF version. And by the way, for those who haven't heard this before, I always put a PDF version of the slides out there. And the reason for that is the copyright on the artwork that I do that I use on these slides. It cannot be given to you in a format that you can reuse it. Okay, so for instance, if you go to iStock Photo, I'm using paid, I pay for my art, so I don't have to use, the same clip art every other person in the world gets for free from Microsoft. I'm using paid for clip art, right? So when I put those pictures and stuff on these slides, I've paid a subscription fee for those. I'm allowed to publish that in a PDF format, but I cannot give it to you in an editable format. And so that's why I do it that way. And you don't need them in an editable format anyway, because it's my material, not yours. So you'll see it's copyright protected, but you're welcome to use it. And then, of course, all this content will be posted in the section as well, so you'll be able to go through it there. All right, so one person, Frank here, posted his whole thing, or a lot of his thing in here, and just said, am I on the right track? Yes. Okay, I want to go through this, succinctly here, just so we have a good example. Let me get my slide up where I want to be. Okay, so here we are. All right, this is the last slide on value prop, then we're going to get into proposals. So I meet this person out there, and let's say I'm at some kind of trade show or something like that, and let's say I'm in small business. I mean, it could be anything. I've called on Fortune 500, and I've called on the mid-market, and I've certainly worked in the SMB market, so it doesn't matter. It works wherever you are. But I meet this guy. Let's say he's a CPA, and, we strike up a conversation. He says, well, what do you do? And so I say, well, you know how all these companies keep getting hit by stuff like ransomware, and it takes their systems down, and it doesn't really matter what kind of technology they're using. We're just getting defeated. That's the space I work in. We're helping companies stop that. Find these guys, track them down, block what they're doing. Wow, cool. So how does that work? What does that mean? Okay, so now I'm going to move into trends because he's interested, right? So I'm going to say, well, funny you should ask, right? You're in the small business, you're a CPA. Did you know that 2/3 of cybercrime attacks are actually targeting small businesses, and 60% of those will go out of business? Now, this is important for a CPA because all the businesses he works with are small businesses. So as I look around, here's what I see. As I look around, I see all these small businesses. A lot of your customers are doing really foolish things with their information. In fact, I bet a lot of them send their financial information to you to get processed just in email, which is a total mistake. Okay. Now I'm concerned. Here's my concern. Again, real short. My concern is when I talk to these small businesses, a lot of times they say, we got it covered, or we're too small, nobody cares about us. They just have this attitude like a hacker has to know who they are in order to infiltrate. And that's not the way this works. So in fact, we've been working, and here we go, what we're doing. I've been working so it's not like, I'm not saying, now listen, I'm not authoritative here. I'm humble. I'm passive a little bit here. I'm telling him the story. Over the last 12 months, our company has invested a tremendous amount in understanding what these criminals are doing, where they're coming from, the tools that they're using. I mean, it's pretty sophisticated stuff. And putting together ways of helping someone evaluate their risk, almost like a doctor would a heart attack, a patient who's worried about a heart attack. What's the likelihood that you're going to have a heart attack this year? And there's a number of tests you can run. We can do the same thing. So see, I'm using an analogy here, so this business guy gets it. And we can do the same thing in your computer world. We can actually run some simple tests that tell us if people have already been in there, just like you would with a heart attack, or if people are trying to get in there, or what the likelihood is they'll be able to get in based on how you conduct business and the kind of data that you have. In your case, a CPA specific to you, right? In your case, I would be really worried about this. Not only do you have small business clients sending you all kinds of information, but if you were to go down, like with ransomware during tax season, like how long could you be down? What if you were down for a week or two? Like what would you do? Okay? Now, I hope he's interested. I hope he goes, man, that would be tough. Then what would I do? I move into the house of the cloud. I go, well, let me show you something real quick. Okay, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and show you how security works and why this is so broken. Protection, detection, response, right? House cloud coverage model. This is the way it should be done. You know what? We do these assessments and they're pretty simple, and a lot of times I'll do them for free for certain people. I'd love to come in and do that for you, right? Let me get your card. We'll schedule a time. I'll come in and we'll run through this. It's pretty simple stuff. It's not going to take a lot of your time. It doesn't, if you have IT people you're working with, it's fine for them to be involved as well. What I'll do is I will show you how well locked down you are and if there's anything you have to worry about. And if there's not, we'll tell you. And if there are, we'll show you what they are, and you can handle it however you want to. Okay? Passive sale, easy close, conversion. All right, so that's it. You've got that on recording now. You can come back and listen to that all you want. It'll be in the portal. And what I want you to do, excuse me, is record yours and send it to me so I can take it. And I'll tell you what, if you don't send it to me, you're missing out. Because when I do these in live workshops and I get people to write it out and I have people stand up and they go through theirs, there are always things they can do to improve them, and they're always grateful for it because they see, oh yeah, that would be better. That would sound better, be easier. And then they go back and they memorize it and they get it. And now it's easy to answer the question, what do? You got an answer that works. And you don't have this stupid elevator pitch that doesn't work. Okay? So it is super, super valuable. Take this, build it, send it to me. Let's get it perfected. Start using it and start measuring your conversion factor from message to education. Okay. And then, of course, when we do the house in the cloud, you're going to drive that through to assessment. A lot of that's in the book. And, of course, the Mastery Sales Training Program, if you haven't been through it, is the place to really master that program. Okay. Let's move on to the next thing.